Without further ado, we are joined by Khahil from Locked On Pistons.
You thought you missed him.
That kind of sound like I was Ryan. What up, though, man? Hey, I appreciate you taking the time, man.
No, thank you guys for having me. I'm busy this week. We have a lot of things going on leading up to the series. I'm doing a lot of podcasts with some Knicks guys. I had some crossovers on my podcast with some beat writers from the Knicks. So getting ready for this series. It's going to be a busy week, but I'm excited.
How are they on that front? You know, when we're talking to these Knicks guys, are they confident?
Oh, we're playing basketball here. Oh.
Are they nervous? Where are they at?
It depends which ones you talk to. There's some that are definitely very confident in what's going to happen in this series for the Knicks. But there are some that have some concerns about the Pistons, and there are some that I've talked to that are just flat out thinking this is a bad matchup for the Knicks. This is a series that I'm sure we'll talk about it soon, but it's very confusing and how, I'm confused about how to pick this series and, where it's going to go because the numbers say one thing, but then the rosters on the paper tell you a different thing. It's a confusing series.
And taking a little bit of a step back from the series as a whole and just looking at the playoffs, you mentioned the roster. The last time the Detroit Pistons made the playoffs in 2019, their starting five was Reggie Jackson, Wayne Ellington, Luke Kennard, Thon Maker, and Andre Drummond. How much better is this Pistons team than that 2019 team?
I mean, if you throw Blake in there, it gets a little closer. Yeah. But that one definitely was you're talking about Thon Maker. I believe he was out the NBA the next year on that. I don't think he was in the NBA after that year. Wayne Ellington, I believe, retired 2 years after that. I believe he was also a buyout pickup by the Pistons. So, Reggie and Andre were fine. I mean, Luke Kennard actually played really well in that series. But, this team has a lot more talent than that team did, a lot more athleticism, especially on the wings. But this is a much better team and a more hopeful team.
Yeah, I think since the last Pistons win, the iPhone was still the very first version. It was, I think Jack Kelly posted something like that. It's crazy how long it's been. But speaking of talent, Detroit Pistons, we did it yesterday. We kind of power ranked the top 10 guys in the series because talent typically wins in the NBA. After Cade, we all kind of had ranked number one. For me, the majority of us, the rest of the four were Knicks. Counting the top five, who's going to step up for the Pistons in this series, in your opinion?
I mean, that's kind of like what I was talking about earlier. If you look at the numbers of how the Pistons have played over the last 50 games, you think, why isn't this team thought of to have more of a chance? Why are they such big underdogs? But then, if you look at the rosters, you compare them for sure. There's an argument between Cade or Brunson. You could go either way, but 1-2 is either Cade Brunson or Brunson Cade. After that, you're going Cat, OG, Mikal, and you could arguably even go 4 deep with the Knicks. The Knicks are a much more talented team than the Pistons. I don't think anyone would dispute that. For me, the X factor for the Pistons has to be Ausar Thompson because he's going to be checking Jalen Brunson, and if he gets into foul trouble, the Pistons don't really have anyone else that can guard Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson's been a proven playoff performer and rises in the playoffs. The Pistons have a guy that it's probably – I don't know if there's many other players you'd like to have guard Jalen Brunson outside of Ausar. Maybe his brother Amen. There's not many other ones that you would rather have. Dyson Daniels. There's only a few. So Ausar has to be able to stay on the floor defensively to check Jalen Brunson, and then he has to be able to be a threat offensively. The Pistons need him to have this two-way impact that he's shown at times this year, and they cannot allow the Knicks to play him off the floor offensively, which I'm assuming the Knicks are going to try to do. So Ausar is too important to the Pistons' success for him not to be on the floor. He has to stay on the floor defensively, and he has to find a way to impact the game offensively.
And speaking of somebody that needs to stay on the floor for the Pistons and helps them defensively, you look at Isaiah Stewart. And we love him. He's dropping his Wagwan music that just came out, Irie. He is the best rim protector in the NBA per opponent field goal at the rim when guarded by the closest defender. How important is it for him not to crash out, but to still be the edge and to still kind of get under Kyle Anthony Towns' skin? I thought it was a 3. How important is Isaiah Stewart being a crash out, but not crashing out for this team?
Yeah, I mean, look, I said this on the podcast yesterday that I won't be shocked at all if Isaiah Stewart plays more in this series than Jalen Duren. This won't be because Jalen Duren's bad or he's not good or he's not the star. It's not for any of those reasons because this might be just an Isaiah Stewart matchup. especially if there's ways you can counter. But let's just assume that Duren's guarding Cat. Duren out in space that's not where he's best at defensively. He can be taken advantage of in space. A quick way to absolve that, put Stu into the game. We saw Stu in the last matchup against the Knicks play like 19, 20 straight minutes. The only reason why he came out the game because he fouled out with 2.5 minutes left. His defense is definitely going to be needed, and Stu needs to understand. I'm sure he sees some of this stuff. He needs to understand that they need his physicality and his attitude, but he cannot cross the line. This team is already at a talent deficit against the Knicks. They cannot then lose their best defensive big and like you mentioned, one of the best defensive bigs in the NBA. They can't have him get kicked out, flagrant two technicals, like suspended for he has to try to toe that line and not cross it, because if he does, the Pistons are going to be really in a tough spot. But he definitely is up there in the amount of importance for this series. He may very well play more minutes than Duren just because he's a better matchup defensively for Karl-Anthony Towns.
Yeah, I mean, Thursday, it was him that was in there in the late fourth quarter trying to come back in the game, so he fouled out and they put in Duren.
One of the things that I wanted to ask about that was just the physicality of this series, that potentially being a huge advantage for Detroit, and something that you've seen that the Knicks media has been fearful of. And I've heard a lot of Knicks media in their coverage say they want to play the double big lineup with Cat at the 4 and Mitchell Robinson. That kind of gives me confidence that it seems like Knicks media kind of wants them to play into the Pistons rather than just be the more talented team. Because I think if they just try to be the more talented team, that's probably a bad position for Detroit. How do you feel about the potential lineups and matchups that the Knicks are going to throw at the Pistons?
Yeah, so in all honesty, all bias aside, the Knicks should have more counters to whatever the Pistons do than the Pistons should have counters to the Knicks. The Knicks have way more talent. They should have a lot more answers to the puzzle than the Pistons should. So, like, for example, you mentioned matchups. Like, if the Knicks go with their starting lineup that has Hart in the starting lineup, I would expect the Pistons to probably experiment putting Duren on Hart and having him roam off and guard, and have Tobias Harris guard Cap. We saw that a little bit during the season, and try to switch that 1-5 pick and roll. The Knicks could counter by, like you mentioned, trying to pull this double big lineup to where that kind of impacts them more defensively, be a little bit more physical, and kind of try to match the Pistons' physicality on that end. That double big lineup could very well be very lethal for the Knicks, because I do think their weakness is defense. And Cat is not the greatest 5 in the world on the defensive end of the floor. I think everybody knows that. So with Mitchell Robinson next to him, you put Cat at the 4, you probably take out Josh Hart, you put Deuce McBride in there, you have a little bit of spacing, that roll man, lob threat, and then you have that defense by Mitchell Robinson and Deuce McBride in there. That is a pretty good lineup, and we'll see if it's how impactful it would be. I don't think the Pistons – I do agree with you, though, that would be them trying to match the Pistons' physicality. I don't think that would really cause or should cause a reaction by the Pistons. I don't think the Pistons should then say, oh, let's try to go double big back at them. I think you've won that chess match if the Knicks are trying to change up their way of playing to try and match your physicality. The Pistons dealt with this against the Cavs a few weeks ago without Cade, and against Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. They didn't go double bigs. They went Asar Thompson and Jalen Duren, and Jalen Duren and Asar Thompson completely dominated that matchup. They dominated the paint. You saw Asar Thompson as a weak side defender, his impact inside on the glass as a rim protector, roaming off the ball. That the Pistons have a unique matchup with, or a unique player with Asar that allows them to do different things, and he's one of the best non-big rebounders in the NBA. So even if the Knicks go double big, if you have Duren, Tobias, and Asar, you should still do fine on the glass. And I wouldn't be shocked if they still won the glass battle, because they did the same thing to Cleveland a few weeks ago without Cade. So there's a lot of things the Knicks can do. I don't know if you guys want to get into that, but there's a lot of counters the Knicks could do. That one, I'm more of a wait and see on. It could help their defense, but I think the Pistons probably would welcome it.
Ron Holland was huge in that game in the fourth quarter last week. How much of an impact do you expect him, or do you expect him to see minutes in this series, given he's a rookie, kind of only averaging 15 minutes in the season?
If Fontecchio's on the floor and Ron Holland's sitting on the bench, I will crash out. I swear to God I will.
I mean, you're already starting to see JB take away some of Tech's minutes in the second half. I think Tech, the last few games, played like 5-7 minutes. Outside the last game, played 5-7 minutes in the first half and then barely played, if at all, in the second half, and Ron's been taking those minutes. I think initially, like game one, I think Ron will get minutes. I think he'll get the normal rotation. He'll play, but he's 19 years old. So we'll see if, is the lights too bright for him? Is he going to make some mistakes? Because in the playoffs, one possession, one mistake can lose you a game. Like every possession is like 10 times more important. So if Ron comes in and they play him and he's playing fine, then yeah, he should continue to get his minutes. I do think he'll get the chance to, but as I've said a few times, it would be great to see Ron play well as a 19-year-old in the playoffs. It'd be pretty crazy. But if he's not ready for it, if he doesn't end up playing as much, it's not a big deal. He's 19 years old. He shouldn't. No one even expected him to play this much for a 6-seeded team as a rookie. The fact he's done this year is honestly crazy. So I think he'll get a chance to play, and then his play will determine if he sustains in the rotation or if he starts to lose some minutes.
And I know we like to talk about the beef stew matchup with Karl Anthony Towns. We like to talk about what Malik Beasley is going to do coming off the bench and different things like that. But when you boil it down, this is on Cade Cunningham. This is his team. He's the superstar. This is his first playoff appearance. And, everybody says it who's ever played in the NBA. Superstars need to step up in the playoffs. You got to take your average from 24 and bump it up to 27. I have the confidence that Cade's going to do that because he's a tough shot maker, and he's going to have a lot of contested shots that he's going to have to make. What are your thoughts of Cade going into his first playoff series and how that Pistons half-court offense is going to look in the playoffs?
I mean, I think this is going to be, like you mentioned, this is going to be the biggest tell of the series, how the series will go for the Pistons. Obviously, they need Cade to play well. You need your best player to be the best player on the floor, to be the best player in your team and go head-to-head with Jalen Brunson, who is a proven playoff monster. He scored 3 straight 40-point games last year to close out the Sixers. This dude is an absolute playoff demon. And I oftentimes I shout back to a video I watched from Thinking Basketball last year. He goes through all the stars throughout history, and it's common. Most stars do not get better in the playoffs. The playoffs slow down. The defense gets harder. A lot of times the efficiency drops, and a lot of times the points per game drop. It's tougher in the playoffs. There are rare stars that do elevate, and those are the guys we remember as legends and clutch guys. And those are the ones that are remembered for a long time. And we haven't seen that from Cade. We don't know what he is. This is his first playoff series ever, and I think that probably is part of the reason why the Knicks are such heavy favorites right now, is because you just don't know what you're going to get out of this Pistons team. You don't know what you're going to get out of Cade. You know what you're getting out of Jalen Brunson. You know what you're getting out of OG, Mikal. These guys. You don't know what yet these young Pistons are going to do. So obviously you need Cade to play well, but you don't know what's going to happen. As far as the half-court offense, that's probably the biggest concern for the Detroit Pistons. Their half-court offense, the Knicks have answers to the Pistons' defense. Yeah. I've said for a while that they have a good matchup for Jalen Brunson, and throughout these games this year, I think the Pistons have done a good job guarding Jalen Brunson. However, what the Pistons don't have is a big wing that can guard OG Anunoby, and OG Anunoby's been fantastic the last month and a half. So if the Knicks decide, okay, we're going to take back some of the uses from Brunson, and we're going to give it to OG and let him keep playing how he's been playing, the Pistons will be in trouble because they don't have someone that can guard OG. They have someone who can guard bigs and Stu. They have someone who can guard point of attack and Asar. They don't have a big defender. And that's why a lot of guys did not want the Pacers in the first round because of Pascal Siakam, and now he dominates the Pistons because they just don't have a big wing defender. So the Knicks have those answers within their half-court offense. I think the Knicks are probably going to trap and blitz Cade a ton in the half court and say someone else beat the Pistons or someone else beat the Knicks. Someone else beat us. We're going to trust that, Asar Thompson's not going to be able to beat us off the dribble, that Duren's not going to be able to beat us off the dribble, that they're not going to continually make the right decisions off the dribble, that Malik Beasley, THJ, Dennis Schroeder, these guys are not going to kill us off the dribble, and we just got to get the ball out of Cade's hands. If they do that, look, the Pistons' half-court offense has not been the greatest all year. Their offense comes from transition, fast break, getting stops, and running. That's when they really thrive. In the half court, it is a lot of tough shot making from Cade and Malik Beasley. So, if Malik Beasley is not the human torch anymore in this series, that could really kill the Pistons. Their half court offense has relied a ton on Malik Beasley being able to hit insane three-pointers throughout the season. So if he goes cold, that could really hurt the Pistons. If the Knicks just double Cade all series and get the ball out of his hands, if guys don't step up and make the right decisions and play the correct way 4-on-3 on the weak side, then it could be a tough matchup for the Pistons. There's some things the Knicks can do. It's just a matter of, will these young Pistons step up and make the right plays if they do decide to just trap Cade and get the ball out of his hands?
Cool, man. I appreciate you taking the time and sitting on the show with us and talk Pistons. I also want to congratulate you on becoming a full-time content creator. I want you to take this moment and shout out your stuff where people can find you, because I know you're doing stuff, watching the game live and everything like that.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. I'm always down to come on whenever you guys need me. But you guys can follow me over on Locked On Pistons, whatever podcast platform you find any podcast, or you can also go to YouTube at Locked On Pistons, subscribe over there. You can also join us on playback at Watch Pistons to watch the games live with me and the rest of the Pistons fan base. You can also subscribe to my Substack, Piston Kudos, where I'm writing and trying to give you guys as much content, written, film breakdowns almost every single week, multiple times a week. It's been a lot of stuff over there. We just had a film breakdown over the Pistons last week in the half-court offense and how much spacing really matters to the Pistons in the half-court, especially against the Knicks. So go check that out. But I appreciate you guys having me on. If you guys want me on any other time, I'm always down.
Definitely.
And also, can I say real quickly, there is no way, I'm sorry, there is no way that anyone is choosing to watch the draft over the Pistons game.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have not had Piston playoff basketball in 6 years. You get the draft every year. And it's not like the Lions have a top pick in the draft. You can just wait. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way. No one's going to tell me that they're watching the draft over a Pistons playoff
Dude, the
game.
Lions did pick it like 11 p.m. last year.
Yeah, and you can just get an update on your phone. Like, oh, they drafted
Right.
whoever. Cool. Awesome. Now let me see Kay drain this three. Like, what are we talking about?
I'm sad because it's been like an annual tradition of mine to watch NFL draft, and you put so much work into it, but sorry, I'm watching Pistons all day.
Absolutely.
One last question, man. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Prime
go
Ben
ahead.
Wallace, Isaiah Stewart, street fight. Who you got?
Look, I'll say this. I'm going to go with Ben simply because I remember growing up and, like, I remember because Ben used to have accessories. He used to have this band on his arm.
Yes, sir.
I remember being like, Mom, I used to ask my mom, like, I want armband, whatever. And then my friends would be like, that's not armband. That's a headband.
headband.
He has wrapped around it's a headband wrapped around his arm because the armband's too small. So I'm going to go with Ben just because of that.
That's
That's
fair. That is
perfect,
fair.
man.
Cool.
Appreciate
you
you,
so
man.
much, brother. I know
Yes, sir, man.
You've been waiting for this for so long. Like, I know 2019 was great and all that, but this is an actual team that we have actual expectations
crazy.
for. So
Yep.
you're gonna crush it. Appreciate it. Make sure you guys go follow.
We're
Cool
watching
on
Cade graduate to stardom, too. It's pretty dope.
We're gonna have you on again soon, brother. Appreciate you, man.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
Yeah, you too.